You ever have one of those moments, you've got this brilliant idea, you know it's a winner, but you just can't seem to get anyone else on board? Well, the secret isn't always the idea. It's how you talk about it. Today, we're going to break down the language of problems and solutions, the specific words that can turn a weak point into an argument that's impossible to ignore. So yeah, how do you build that perfect argument? It's so frustrating, right? We've all been there. You know you're right, but the words just don't come out the right way. Well, forget all that struggle. We're going to build a toolkit, piece by piece, that'll give your ideas the punch they really deserve. All right, so where do we even begin? Well, before you can even think about a solution, you have to become an absolute expert on the problem. I mean, you've got to define it with perfect clarity. Because, let's be honest, you can't fix what you can't define. You know, it's pretty easy to point out what's wrong on the surface, but that's where most arguments just stop. The really powerful ones, they dig deeper. They don't just talk about the wilting leaves on the plant, they get their hands dirty and find the root cause. And that is the difference between just complaining and offering a real compelling analysis. So how do you actually signal that you're going deeper? It's all about using precise language. Instead of just saying, this is a problem, try framing it with a little more authority. Something like, the root cause of this is, or this entire problem stems from. See that? Instantly, your argument sounds more credible, more focused. Okay, so as you start digging for those causes, you're probably going to land on a specific source. And sometimes, to really make your argument sharp, you have to point the finger. You have to assign responsibility. Whether you're talking about a bad decision or some other factor, using a phrase like the main culprit is takes you from just talking about something to actually making a strong point. And that's a really powerful move. Let's look at how this works in the real world. You could say, there's a problem, okay? Or you could say, the problem lies in the lack of communication between managers and staff. See the difference? By pinpointing the source so clearly, the argument suddenly becomes real, it's specific, and honestly, it's a whole lot easier to figure out how to solve it. And here's a big one. Never ever settle for just calling something a problem. Give it some personality. Is it a pressing, urgent issue that we need to fix right now? Or is it a perennial, long-standing problem that's been around forever? Using adjectives like these isn't just about sounding fancy. It completely frames the debate and makes your point sound way more sophisticated. Okay, we have totally dissected the problem. We've got it pinned down. Now comes the fun part, crafting the solution. This is where we switch gears, right? We go from being the analyst to being the architect. We're moving from diagnosis to action. So let's get into the language of the fix. But before we dive in, let's add a fantastic word to our vocabulary, panacea. It's often used as a word of caution. Like you might say, look, this idea is helpful, but it's not a panacea. It's a smart way to show you get it, that complex problems almost never have one single magical fix. This is super important. Not all solutions are the same, and the verb you choose says a lot about what you're trying to do. Are you trying to completely eradicate the problem, like wipe it off the mat for good? Or are you just trying to alleviate it, make it a little less severe? That one word tells everyone how realistic and thoughtful you're being. So let's upgrade our toolkits. Let's move beyond just saying solve. Think about the kind of energy you want to bring. Do you want to tackle an issue head-on, or maybe combat a negative trend, or even get clever and circumvent an obstacle that's in your way? Each of these words brings a totally different vibe to your solution. And hey, just like we did with problems, using the right adjectives for your solution makes it so much more convincing. Is your idea a pragmatic, practical fix? Or is it something more drastic and radical? Is this a quick fix or a long-term permanent solution? Adding these details gives your idea a ton of credibility. Okay, now for what is maybe the most critical step of all. You've pointed out the problem, you've offered a solution, but the million-dollar question is, why should anyone believe you? Why should they think it'll actually work? This is all about justification. It's the bridge you build between your idea and a real result. And you know what? The logic here is actually surprisingly simple. It really just comes down to a two-step process. Step 1, make your recommendation. Just say what needs to be done. Step 2, predict the result. Explain what good thing will happen because of it. That's it. It's this powerful 1-2 punch that connects an action to its consequence. So for that first step, making a recommendation, modal verbs are going to be your best friend. The word you pick totally sets the tone. Must is strong, it's non-negotiable. Should is more of a firm suggestion. And could is a much softer option, just a possibility you're throwing out there. Okay, check this out. Here's a perfect example of that first step. Stricter laws should be put into effect to prevent factories from polluting the environment. See, that should makes it a clear, direct suggestion. We know exactly what's being proposed. So, what happens next? Then both the air and water would be cleaner. And boom, there's the payoff, the logical result. When you connect the action directly to the outcome like that, the cause and effect is just crystal clear. Honestly, this simple if this, then that structure is the backbone of pretty much any persuasive argument you'll ever need to make. And if you want to make that link between your action and the result totally impossible to miss, you can use some simple signpost phrases. Things like, this would lead to, or as a result. They're like little arrows that guide your listeners' thinking, making sure they see exactly what the benefit is. So simple, but so effective. But sometimes the best argument isn't about the great future you're promising. It's about the terrible future you're trying to avoid. You can totally flip the script by saying something like, unless we take action soon, you're not just offering an idea, you're sounding an alarm. And sometimes that warning is way more persuasive than any promise. Whew, okay, so we have covered a lot of ground here, from nailing down the problem to justifying the solution. So now let's pull it all together. Let's wrap everything we've learned into one simple, powerful framework that you can take with you and use for, well, anything. Here's an awesome tool to structure your thoughts, especially in writing. It's called the Peel method. It's super easy to remember. First, make your point. Then, give an example to back it up. Now, here's the part everybody forgets but is so important. Explain it. Answer that so what question. Why does it matter? And finally, link it all back to your main argument. If you do this, every single one of your points will be solid, supported, and clear. At the end of the day, everything we've talked about really boils down to this simple, powerful, three-part structure. First, define the problem super clearly. Second, propose a solution using strong, confident language. And third, justify that solution by showing the amazing result. Problem, solution, justification. Get this down and you have pretty much mastered the art of persuasion. So, there you have it. The language, the structure, the strategy, it's all right there in your toolkit now. You've got everything you need to build arguments that don't just get heard, but that actually land. Arguments that are compelling, persuasive, and really powerful. So I guess the only question left is, what problem are you going to solve?